Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be making this demain pencil dress with cut at the waist length. So if you want to see how to make a dress that fits like a glove, please keep on watching. Please don't also forget to subscribe to my channel, thumbs up this video and leave a comment. If you want to order an outfit from me, please, my details are going to be in the description box, so you can reach out to me. This demain dress will also be available for order. So guys, I want to draft, or rather I want to cut the skirt part of the outfit first before I go ahead and cut the upper part. So to cut the half, like the skirt part first, I am going to start from my waist length. Remember that this is the dress. We are going to attach this to the upper part of the outfit. My waist length is 16 inches, but I'll start this from 15 and a half. This 050 here is going to be our sewing allowance. So I'm going to place my tape from 15 and a half at this point, and then I'll get my hip length. My hip length is 28 and a half. Please, if you don't know how to get your hip length, I have a video on my channel showing you how to take a comprehensive body measurement. So I'm going to be linking it in the description box. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and mark my knee length. My knee length is 40 inches, but I'm going to come up by 2 inches because, for me to have mobility of walking, because this is a pencil outfit, even though we're still going to have a slit. So I'll come up by 2 inches. I'm going to mark 38. So this will be my knee length. Then this is my full length. My full length is 58 and a half. I am using the whole fabric as my full length, and this will also include my sewing allowance. So I'll go ahead and replicate this marking again and then rule everything together. So the next thing I'll do is to mark in my body measurement, my round measurements. So my waist is 30 divided by 4 is 7.5, so, or 7.5. I'll come here and mark my 7.5. Then I've marked it, I'll add my sewing allowance which is 2 inches. Then it will be 9.5. Sorry, yes, 9.5. Then at the hip length, I am going to mark my round hip. My round hip is 48 divided by 4 is 12. So I'm going to mark 12 inches here. My sewing allowance is 2 inches. Altogether, the total is going to be 14 inches. So at this my knee length, I am going to mark my round knee. And how I get my round knee is from my round hip. I'm going to do my round hip minus 8. My round hip is 48 minus 8 is 40. Then I'll now go ahead and divide it by 4. Now, if you don't want your outfit to be all snatched, maybe you're making a cloth for someone that is elderly, or a cloth you're wearing to church, or a cloth that you want it to be like fitted but still like snatch, you can go ahead and subtract like maybe 6 or 5 from the hip. So I'll go ahead and mark 10 inches here, and then plus 2 inches, making it 12 inches. So for our full length, I'm going to subtract 1.5 from the knee length. Subtracting 1.5 from 10 is going to give me 8.5. So I'll mark 8.5 here, plus 2 inches, which is 10.5. I'll mark it. So I'm going to connect this to this, and then put the sewing allowance to the sewing allowance. So let's go ahead and connect it together. Then I'll connect sewing allowance to sewing allowance. Please watch closely what I'm doing at the hip length. At this hip length, I'll place my tape here and come down by 2 inches. These 2 inches, it is from these 2 inches that I'm going to connect to the knee length. Do you understand? This is going to help to eliminate any form of ear that you normally have at the hip length when you make your outfit. Do you understand? So you are going to go straight. You see the way we have gone straight. To connect from our hip length to our waist length, I'm going to be using my hip curve. So I'm going to put this here and then align it to this part, to this hip line part, and then I'm going to join it together. Then I'll do the same for the sewing allowance. I'll join it together. So the next thing I'll come here and do is to come down at this waist length, center front here. I'll come down by 1 inch, and then I'm going to connect this 1 inch to our waist measurements here, but I will not start at the measurements accurately, I'll stop it at 050, or rather I'll go in by 050 or half an inch here. It is from that half an inch I went in that I'm going to connect to this 1 inch here. I hope you understand what I said. Yeah, so this is what I am having. So I'll go ahead and cut out this material. We're about to draw the back pattern now. So the next thing we are going to be doing is from this center back, I am going to mark 1.5 inches. This 1.5 inches is going to serve as my zip allowance. So I'm going to mark the 1.5 all through and then join it together. Then I'll bring my front pattern and then place it on top of this black, on top of the back pattern. But I'm going to start it from the 1.5 inches zip allowance. Can you see? I didn't start it from the edge. I'm going to make it coincide at the 1.5 inches sewing allowance. So that is what we are going to go ahead and do. So I'm going to extend my hip line to the back, to the zip allowance that we left here. Can you see what I'm doing? I also extend this part, this knee length part. If you watch very closely, see that our front pattern, when we drafted it, I didn't add any darts into it. It is because all the manipulation we're going to do on this skirt is going to be at the bum side. So at the waistline, I'm going to go in by 1.5, the 1.5 that we did for our zip. Yes, but if you are from, let me say, hip 38 to like 44, you can go in by 1 inch. Yeah, so at this hip line now, I am going to go up and down by 2.5 inches. If you are from like hip 38 to like 42, you can go up by 1.5. Then from 44 to like 48, you can go up by 2 inches, 2.5. So me, I'm going to go up by 2.5 here, up and down. So I'm going to go up by 2.5. Then I'll come down by 2.5, which is 5 inches at this point. Remember guys, that at the waistline we went in by 1.5 this way, but then at the hip line we went up and down, not in, up and down by 2.5 inches. Then at the knee line we will still go in by 1.5 here. So like I said, if you have a smaller hip, please use 1 inch. 1 inch is very okay for you. Then that is what I'm going to do. Then 1.5 here. So what we are going to be doing now is to do the joining on these clothes. So I'm going to connect from 1.5 at the waistline that we went in to that 2.5 inches up from the hip length. I'll join this from here to that point. So let me go ahead and mark this line now. Then I will now, from these 2.5 inches at this down part, I'll connect it to the 1.5 inches that went in at the knee length. So look at how my ruler is. I'll go in. Can you see? So now that I've done this, for this side at the waist length, I am going to come out to join more sewing allowance. I'm going to add 1 inch at this point. At the hip line, I'm not going to add any sewing allowance again to it. And then at the full length, I will also add 1 inch. So I'll go ahead, and now I know I'm going to cut this 1 inch when I'm joining it, 1 inch. And then when I reach the hip line, the hip side, I am going to like not add anything here. And then from this 1 inch, I'll come again and come to this hip line. So guys, you can use your tape, your ruler whilst doing this, and then at this point use your hip curve, because me, I'm already used to doing it. That is why I am. Let me also confirm it. So this is how I'm going to cut out the back pattern now. This is our full length. I'll cut it here. At this point, look at what I'm doing. I'm adding that 1 inch I told you guys, 1 inch sewing allowance, and then at the hip region, you're not adding anything. It is going to be the same thing as the front. Then at the waist region, 1 inch sewing allowance. So watch how I'm going to cut here the back pattern. Watch how I'm going to cut the back pattern. I'll cut from this 1.5 sewing allowance that we went in here. I'll cut it here. Then from here I'll go this way. Can you see the way I went? So I can go and meet this 2.5 inches below the hip line. So I am going to stop here. Then I'm going to leave our hip line. I'll come up to the 2.5 inches above the hip line. That's where I'm going to start again, and then cut this side and go to the 1 inch at the waist length. So can you see how the bum is looking? So you can see that we have gone ahead and added our bum inside here. All our darts is inside here. Look at this part of the outfit is curved. So watch here very carefully. We are going to come back here and mark 1.5 inches sewing allowance again. Do you see what I'm doing? You're going to mark the 1.5 inches again. Remember, look carefully at the hip line from the 2.5 inches above and below the hip line. You can see that it is still maintaining that our 1.5 inches I've added. So you're going to leave that point, and then you come here again, 1.5 inches sewing allowance. This is going to be your new zip line, zip allowance line. So let me go ahead and join it together. So this is where you are going to sew on for the back side. So this is going to be your center back. So the next thing I'll go ahead and do at this 1.5 sewing allowance here, zip allowance that is here, I'm going to notch it so I'll know where I am meant to sew. I will also do the same at the down part at this point. So let's go ahead and cut the upper part of the outfit. So I'm going to place my tape from the beginning here. By the way, before we do that, how I got my folding is to use my biggest measurement, and my biggest measurement is my round bust divided by 4, which is 44 divided by 4, 11. Then I add my sewing allowance, which is 2 inches, and that is 13 inches. That is how I got like my folding here. So let us now start. I'm going to mark my vertical measurement. So my upper bust length is 7. This 7 is including sewing allowance. Then my bust length is 11.5. It's actually 11 but including sewing allowance. Then my waist length is 16, but I'm going to use 16.5 for my sewing allowance. So go ahead and add like 3 inches after your waist length. The reason why I'm adding 3 inches is because we are still going to add get our bust dart, and by the time we pull our bust dart in, it is going to shorten the length of this. Just with 3 inches, you're going to understand it by the time you start sewing it. So I'll go ahead and mark the same thing here and rule everything together. At the neckline here, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement. My shoulder length is 16 divided by 2 is 8. I'm going to go ahead and add 1 inch as my sewing allowance. At this point, I'll go ahead and mark that same 9 inches at this down part, okay, and then I'll connect these parts together. Now I've connected it together, I will now come at this part, at this shoulder side on top here, and come down my 1 inch. This is going to be my shoulder slope. Then from this 1 inch, I'm going to get the middle of this armhole here. Then I'll go in by 0.50 at this point. I'm going to connect this point to this point, then to this chest line point here. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm using free hands. So come and form my neckline. I want my neckline to be a V neckline. So I'm going to go in here by 3 inches. I'll go down here by 7 at this point, because I want it to show cleavage but not like much cleavage. So this is how I'm going to take this. I'm going to draw this to get my neckline. Do you see how it's not like a straight V? I made it to come this way before it now went this way. So you can use your hand and form your own the way you want it to be. So at this my upper bust length or chest line, I'm going to mark my round bust divided by 4, which is 11. And I'm going to add my sewing allowance, making it 13. My sewing allowance is 2 inches. It's already the same thing as the bust point at the bust line. Yes, I'm not going to mark anything at the bust line. This is my waistline. I will not mark anything at this waistline because it's the same thing as the full length. So I'm going to mark my round waist at this our sewing allowance. So my round waist is 30 divided by 4 is 7.5. So I'm going to mark it here, and I'm going to go ahead and add 3.5 inches as my sewing allowance. The 3.5 inches here will comprise of 2 inches as our sewing allowance, and then the 1.5 inches remaining as our darts. So I'll go ahead and connect this sewing allowance at the chest line to the sewing allowance at the waistline. And then I'll go ahead and mark from this our neck point to our 1 inch to form our shoulder slope. My bust point is 4.5 or nipple to nipple, so I'm going to mark the 4.5 at my bust point here, my bust line, or rather on my bust length. I'm going to mark my 4.5 on my bust length. I will also come down here and mark the 4.5, and then I will come and connect both of them together at this point. Now that I'm done marking this, I'll come at this bust point here and come down by 1.5 inches. I will also go in this way by I will go out. Yeah, this is out. Go out by 1.5 inches. So at this line here, I'm going to come and form my dart, and I'll be using 0.75 here and 0.75 at this point. So at the end of it all, our dart distance is 1.5. So I've gone ahead to mark the 1.5. I will also come and mark my bust dart at the same time, the same thing that we did at the waist dart, 0.75 up and down. So the distance between the two is going to be 1.5 inches. So at the bust dart here, I will connect it to this point that we went 1.5 inches out. So I'm going to join this to this point, and then I'll join the other leg to that same point. So I am going to come to the waist dart. I'll join it to this 1.5 inches that we came down from the bust point. So I'll go ahead and join it now. I'll also join the other leg to it. So we'll now go ahead and cut out this. So watch me carefully as I cut this out. So I'll come to the shoulder side and go this way. What I'm going to do at this point is to not shear and not shear. So I'll make sure that this is like where my dart is going to be. So the next thing I'll be doing is to use my pin and pin here at this point here, so I can use a chalk and indicate where I am going to stop or start this dart, however you want to do it. Then I also indicate the other one for the waist dart where it's going to stop. So this is it. So I know that when I'm sewing the back here, this notching we did at this point is going to serve as my guide, and then this point is going to show me where I'm going to stop it. Likewise, this at this side. Do you get? We are going to move on to cutting the neckline. So let us cut this out. I will not cut this slope out yet. Let us now move on to cut the back pattern of this outfit. I'll go ahead and mark out my zip allowance. So my zip allowance is going to be 1.5 inches sewing allowance. So I'm going to mark my 1.5 across here, and then I'm going to join everything together. So it's from this 1.5 that I've joined here, that I've marked here, that I'm going to place my front pattern. So the next thing we are going to do is to come here and come down by 2 inches to mark our neck depth. So this is 2 inches. We already know that our neck from this side is going to start from where the front is stopping. So I'm going to connect this to this place, and then at the waistline here, I'll go in by 1.5. Remember our skirt part, the skirt part of this outfit at the back, we went in by 1.5. This is going to take care of the bulginess at the back, so that your zip is going to like lay very flat on your body. So I'll come here and go in by 1.5. So I'll come to this waistline here, like how we did for the skirt part, and add 1 inch here. But then I'll not add anything at this point, so I'm going to connect it this way. So the next thing I will do now is to cut out this pattern, this my material. So you can see at the waistline I added 1 inch here, so I'm going to start from there and cut this. Look at what I'm doing at this point. I didn't add anything, so I'm going to also cut the back of the outfit. So I'm going to start from this point and connect it to this 1.5 that we went in here. So now we have done this, I will now use my scissors and cut out this fabric space that is there that we don't need. I'll come here and mark my 1.5 here to indicate the where the zip allowance is going to start from, because this point we didn't remove anything, so it's going to maintain the 1.5 sewing allowance. So I'll mark back that our zip allowance that we removed initially, which is 1.5 inches. I will mark it back here. So this is going to be my new zip line. So if you watch this part, our back side does not have any darts. This has already compensated or catered for the darts. I have to put this back so I can now cut the neckline. So guys, let me go ahead and explain how you're going to sew these skirt parts together. I'll bring my skirt here and then I'll notch this center part here. I will also notch this side. So when you go to your sewing machine, what you are going to do for the center front, for the front pattern, what you are going to be doing at the sewing machine is to join it at this our accurate measurement that we did here, we marked here. You follow this chalk and join it, but you join it with a loose stitch like number 5, because you're going to be loosening it much later. So when you are done joining it, you take this to your iron. So you are going to like press it. You are going to do open ironing pressing. So you go ahead and loosen that thread that you did. You will see that there's going to be a line, iron line at this point. Another way to make it easier for you is after sewing it at that back side, you come here and then use your chalk and mark exactly on where the thread is. Do you get? Then go ahead and iron it. So we'll come to the back side. You are going to join this outfit by 1.5 sewing allowance, this new one that we have put here. You're going to open this and then iron this back center back. You see the points at the center front where I notched it. I'm going to make sure it coincides with the zip side at the back. Then I'll go ahead and pin it there at the top part. I'll also replicate the same thing for the back side, like the down part of the outfit. I'll now go ahead and make sure that both sides, they tally, like everything corresponds. The back and the front is laying down flat. And then I'll now go ahead and pin everything, like secure it. You see those iron marks that we gave to the clothes? I'll go ahead to the machine and run stitch on both sides. Now we are done with the skirt part, we move over to the top part. So I'm using bias to close up the mouth of the neckline. You can also go ahead and use your facing, like cut your material and use it to finish up the neckline. So I am going ahead to sew the back of the neckline. After sewing the back of the neckline, I will now go ahead and join the zip side, like the zip allowance, the center back together, and I'm using 1.5 inches to join it. Then we'll move over to the front pattern. I also use bias to finish up the neckline of this outfit. Now once I'm done doing the neckline, I'll go ahead and sew my darts together. You're going to sew, you have 4 darts to sew here, 2 waist darts and 2 breast darts on both sides. Remember that we chalked everything, so it's going to make it very easy for you to do that. At this point, you're going to indicate the center of the front material. Once you're done with that, then you bring your back material and place it first on the table. Then you now place the top material or the top pattern on top of the back side. That place you notched in front should coincide with the center back, like our zip allowance line, and then our neckline in front should coincide at the center point. That deepest point should coincide with the center back at the top part. So when we are done with this, we are now going to arrange, pin everything together. Remember that we sewed our front darts, breast darts by 1.5 inches. So this material or the length of this top is going to shorten, meaning that the length of the top, like the front pattern, is going to be shorter than the back side. That is normal. So when you are done pinning this, make sure that the shoulder aligns with each other. You go ahead and take your body measurement, the breast measurement, the waist length measurement. That's where you are going to run your stitch, and then you cut off the excess material on the bottom part of the back pattern. So now we have proceeded to join the thing on both sides at the shoulder. You give this a good pressing, iron all the places that you have sewn so that you're going to give your outfit a professional look. Once we are done with that, we will now get come and mark our actual waist length plus sewing allowance. So you're going to keep your tape at the shoulder and then mark out your waist length. My waist length is 16 and a half, or rather 16, but I decided to make it 16 and a half, so I am marking on 17. So I'll go ahead and roll that 17 inches together. Do you understand? So if your waist length is 15, for example, go ahead and mark out 15 and a half. 050 is going to be your sewing allowance. So now I'm done I'm joining the lines together. I'll now go ahead and cut this off. So this will now be what I will use to join to the skirt part of this outfit. Then we'll turn this to the back side. Then we are going to make sure that the center, like we're just going to take only the center back of this outfit. Make sure that the sides, the sides are aligning with each other, making the center back your middle point. So after I've arranged this very well, I'll take my tape measurement and mark out 1 inch upwards, just at the back pattern, please, just the back pattern. I'll mark 1 inch upward towards the center, and then I am going to cut it off, and I'll leave 050 towards the center, towards the back side. Do you get what I mean? Like, I'm going to leave 050. I'm not going to cut it all the way to the sides. Yeah, so after we are done this, you can see the way the back side is looking. It is shorter than the front by 1 inch. This is going to help to eliminate any form of bulging at the back after you have installed your zip. Then when we are done with this, we'll move over to our round armhole. I'll now recreate my actual round armhole. Remember that this outfit is freehand. We didn't use pattern. If we use pattern, you don't have to do all this, because you must have done this on the pattern paper. So I'll move over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to join this outfit at the waist length. Meaning I'm going to join the skirt part and then the upper part of this outfit together at the waist length. Remember that I am using 050 as my sewing allowance. That is what I added. So if you added 1 inch as your sewing allowance, you go ahead and use that. So remember, this our knee length. This is our knee length. So go to your material where you marked your knee length. I top stitched it. It's locked up. So what I will now do is I am going to loosen all the thread at the center back. This is my center back at the down part of the outfit. I'll loosen all the thread out until it reaches my knee length where I top stitch this outfit. So once I'm done loosening it, this is going to become my slit. I will now remove all the threads that are hanging on the material. After I've done this, I will now go to the end of the material so I can hem the down part. Do you get? So my sewing allowance I'm using is 1 inch, like folded twice. So altogether my sewing allowance there is 2 inches. So you go ahead and fit the sleeve of choice and also add your zip at the back, and the dress is ready. So guys, we have come to the end of this video. Look at the way the dress fits like a glove. Try it out and let me know. Please don't forget to tag me to your tutorial or your practice, okay? Follow me on my Instagram page at Navigout. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, thumbs up this video, and I will see you guys in my next one.